sitting down with my man Darian Cruz, and Darian, it's been awesome watching your career, and you guys at Bethlehem Catholic were my first experience as a sports journalist. That was my first year at the Express Times of,
Wow.
I think it was your sophomore year. Um, was like my really true first experience of watching high school wrestling at a high level when I wasn't part of it as a wrestler myself. So, I've gotten a chance to literally watch you grow up in the sport and do some of the things that you're doing. So, when people talk about forging relationships and things like that in wrestling and having a job like mine as a sports journalist, I literally had to learn how to separate being a sports journalist and being friends with you guys and,
Right.
you and your dad and your brother all at the same time, right? So like I was really kind of cutting my teeth as a journalist. So it's been awesome to watch you grow, and it was awesome to watch you qualify for the Olympics and win a national title. We took a picture together after you won a national title in the tunnel,
Mhm.
right? So it was awesome to be able to do those things, but I was learning along with you. So, had to start out by just kind of giving you your flowers, man. Like it's been awesome to watch you grow and watch you succeed in this sport. But what's it meant to you to be able to stay in the Lehigh Valley and succeed on every level? You won
Mhm.
state titles, you won a national title, and now you're an Olympian and you've stayed home to do all of it. What's that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it in general, like just hearing your story, right? Yeah, obviously, really good athlete, and then kind of transitioning this into now you're covering athletes, right? Um, you got to cover Bethlehem Catholic, when it was on its rise. You
Hmm.
got in. It's like you got in early on the stock, essentially, right? You were there for it. So, hearing that story, right, as you unfold it, and as you kind of follow along and see how these kids grow. Not just me, right? The team just grows and kind of tells my story and accomplishing or having success on all these levels. And just to get at your question, to stay home, it's I kind of do it to for that story that you kind of just told,
Yeah.
right? So sorry, a car's driving by. We're in the B town, downtown city here.
Yeah.
But like just kind of just like you explained it, right? To build that relationship and build that community and kind of not have to seek for it. Right,
Hmm.
right before we kind of hopped on here, we were talking about how our hometown heroes, or we had our biggest heroes were in our backyards, right? We had our heroes were hometown heroes, right? So we didn't really have to look too far. So, um, you know, not that it happened, on accident, right? I made it a point, really, just because that's what I knew, to be where my feet are, right? And just and feed off the community and it be a big cycle, right? So the more
Hmm.
the community feeds into me, the more that I accomplish, the more I can praise and give back to the community. And then, it's a cycle again. Community grows. They pump into me. I accomplish great things. I praise the community, and it's obviously a cycle. And then, furthering that inspiration, just furthering the next generation, right? So not only giving back to the community, you give back to the community, give back to the youth, and they do the same thing, right? And then they start producing. So, just kind of like you were talking about, um, watching things grow from a young age and seeing all these things unfold. That's kind of the reason why I do it the way I did it, right? Just to be able to. Oh, they got street clean. Just they got street cleaning now. But again, just like you said, that's the way that I do it. I kind of it feels right that I do it for that reason to be able to um, have a connection like that. Like we said, we took a picture in the tunnel, and
Hmm.
just because you knew me from a young age, and you've seen me grow, you've seen me develop, you've seen me accomplish being a state champion, you've seen me get the national title. It makes it more personable for
Yeah.
you, right? And like you said, I really appreciate you giving my flowers, and I take pride on that. I take pride on being an average person to the community, right? I'm out here, hanging out with people in the community. I'm not, living in the to paint this picture, I'm not living up in the penthouse, kind of looking down on everybody. I'm in the streets with everybody, saying what's up, grabbing a slice of pizza, taking photos and interacting with the community because I know what they did for me at such a young age. You never
Hmm.
know the impact that you're gonna have, right? Not just in wrestling, right? But there's kids, in the Lehigh Valley majority, not for nothing, that have the same skin color, same hair, eyes, right? Might be Puerto Rican, black, African, Asian, whatever it may be. Just being able to aspire more than um, one influence is something that drives me a lot. So I keep that in the back of my mind when I'm kind of moving the way I move, because I was inspired that way just as well. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just you never know the impact you're gonna have on a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the youth obviously in wrestling is very different in the Lehigh Valley. Like you said, we
Oh yeah.
have our heroes right there. A lot of the time, we're training with our heroes then once we get to a certain age, and you're now training with somebody that was at Lehigh that became an Olympian in Kerry McCoy.
hmm
What are some of the things that Kerry has instilled in you as you've been training and as you've been
Yeah.
working with him for years that have helped you get to that next level?
Yeah. So a really good thing that Carrie has, and just kind of like we talked about right now, Carrie understands the presence I have in the community, right? So he encourages me to lean on and draw confidence and draw inspiration from that,
Hmm.
right? And use that. Like I said, he not for nothing, he was the first RTC athlete here 20 years before I qualified for the Olympics. So it's like just how it goes, and he's got to been there, done that. So having him here has been an example. He's been such a good example, right? Not just on the mat, but off the mat, into our community, right? We do a lot of um, community outreach, and we meet with a lot of our alumni base, right? Just business development. So
Hmm.
he's on the Santoro, plan where he's building good men, right? So to be able to have a coach that can pour into you, not just in the wrestling room, right? He'll call me to shoot the shit or chop it up, and be like, "How's everything going? How the babies? How the kid? How's the wife?" And
Hmm.
we talk regularly. And then when it's time to talk, business on the mat, we do. When it's time to talk business development, we do. And at the same time, he knows wrestling, man. He's been to
Yeah.
2 Olympics, right? So he knows the game. So it's like, and then you know what I mean. In the corners, he's that much calmer, cooler, collected, right? And it's good to have that presence and have that confidence from somebody that knows the Lehigh Valley as well, right? Obviously not born, but came and lived here for a little bit, coached here for a little bit. So it's been it's been really neat to have him in my corner.
So now you're obviously getting ready for the Olympics. You're, a month out. How's training been? And, what sort of things have you been doing to prepare to make sure you're peaking when I think it's August 8th is when you guys compete? What are some of the things you're doing to help yourself peak when the time comes?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've been very diligent with our work. You know, one thing we have been focusing on the past year pretty much is getting in that routine of travel, train, compete, right? Travel, train, compete. Travel out to competition, get adjusted, get acclimated, make train, make weight, and then get on the scale and compete, and just kind of get that cycle over and over again. Um, because not for nothing, we're competing on different time zones majority of the time, so we get in that habit. Um, so not only have we been training really hard here, but we've been really taking advantage of our opportunities overseas.
Hmm.
I'm actually leaving for Spain later today. We're going out to compete in Spain and then do a little training camp out there. So just getting those reps in and being on that time change and getting in the habit. So we've been really locking in and utilizing our resources both overseas and home. At home here specifically, we've had so many resources to lean on in the valley in general, right? I mean, not for nothing, Keanu Dillard's a savage, and he's made the U17 team,
Hmm.
right? He's a beast. So he's been in our training camp a little bit. He's a lightweight body and he knows how to wrestle. And he's a Becca boy, and then same thing with Ryan Crookham and a Luke Stanich and a bunch of the other 25 pounders, Sheldon Seymour. And then we have some killers here at the LVWC and Giuseppe and Nashawn Garrett. So it's been really I've been really comfortable sourcing, you know, at home. So we've been really grinding in that manner. But I think the biggest key that's going to help me out is doing the overseas travel, train, compete, travel, train, compete. So we're going to do that one more time and then come home. I'll be home for about 2 weeks after the Spain competition and training camp. And then we do it, for the final time. We head out to Paris the 24th, opening ceremony 26th, and then we get busy the 8th and ninth. So yeah, no, I feel really sharp and not really anxious, excited, no anticipation. Right, it's my first time, so it's like I'm just really excited to put on display what we've been working on since we qualified, and um, yeah, just excited.
Yeah. So one of the things that, you talk about LVWC, one of the things we talked about on our show last night when we recorded was how wrestling is now a sustainable profession, where a long time ago you had guys that were waking up in the morning, going to a regular job,
Oh yeah.
maybe training in the morning, but now you guys can just be wrestlers. You can focus on, being a dad and your job of being a wrestler. What's it mean to you, and how, how great does it feel when you're like, I can just focus on being an Olympian. I can focus on, the matches and the preparation. And then when I need my downtime as a dad, I have that downtime as a dad. I'm not splitting time between wrestling, working a normal job, and being a dad and being away from my family most of the time. How good does it feel to know that you're part of a generation of wrestlers where you have a sustainable amount of money that is coming in where you can do those things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so fortunate, right? I'm just so fortunate in the fact that I get to do that you said. So I feel like one of the biggest things is having the resources to do that. So I mean, we travel and not for nothing as well. Like that's our job, being overseas. So obviously, I say the first thing we are is fortunate because a lot of these other countries aren't like that, right? They're not structured the
Mm-hmm.
way the U.S. is, right? So again, first and foremost, just super super grateful. But it makes being able to train, travel, compete, that cycle that we were talking about so much easier when you can pour in, right? And this past cycle, I did a really good job of committing to the lifestyle, right? And just not taking it for granted. So like I said, I was the last cycle I was a volunteer assistant and stuff like that for Lehigh, but fortunate for me, I was able to um, just commit fully and commit to training, right? So getting up early, training, afterwards, getting the rest in that I need, and then, like you said, when I have downtime, committing to being a father, and which is huge when you have babies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Being present when you are traveling overseas for 1 week, 2 weeks at a time, sometimes 3 weeks at a time if you're doing a double tour. So it really helped me grow as a family man, grow as an athlete, right? Because you have nothing else to prioritize besides those two things, right? You have first there's God, then there's your family, then there's your craft. So when you have time to devote um, to those main things, right? You can keep the main thing
Yeah.
at all times. So that's one of my favorite quotes lately. I know I heard Hurt say it like pretty much all last year, but that's been one of my mantras lately. Just navigating this space the past couple of months after qualifying, um, and yeah, just being able to keep the main thing, right? So when it's time to train, we can train, get busy, keep focused on that, right? We walk out of that room. Now you turn the mindset on to being now I can be a dad. Now I can go home, take my family out to lunch, right? Be present, and then when it's time to travel, right? You have that conversation with your family, and you can be present when you travel. You don't have to worry about what's going on at home, because your wife's holding it down, and that's what the sacrifices you make to chase this kind of stuff. So it all makes it worth. It seems like I don't even like to use that word sacrifice because it seems like it's not even a sacrifice. It's just it's just how it goes. But I think the biggest thing that has helped the wrestling world, especially for the United States, is being able to have a committed RTC. Right, like LVWC's got like 6 or 7 athletes, and we're killers, and we all have our different lives outside of the wrestling room, outside of the
Mm-hmm.
sport, right? Which we intermingle and connect a lot. Um, but we all get busy when it's time to get busy in the wrestling room, right? So it's like, I feel like not too long ago there was a time where you couldn't really do that, right? You had guys working full-time jobs, and to this day you probably still do, right?
Yeah.
But there are some athletes fortunate enough to be able to provide for themselves and their family strictly off of wrestling. So yeah, I think it benefits the athlete 100%, And not for nothing, the more you benefit the athlete, the more the athlete benefits your club, university, community, right? And I think just like the cycle I was talking about earlier, it's just it all everyone helps each other out in that manner. So I think it's huge being able to have full-time RTC athletes.
Yeah. So for the longest, you were trying to make Team USA and then you switch, right? What was the
Mm-hmm.
conversation around that? We've heard RBY talk about it and Gomez talk about, family heritage and things like that. Were you having some of the same similar conversations around why you wanted to, represent Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I mean, very similarly, right? I mean, Puerto Rico's been contacting me since I was in middle school, right? I've been having those conversations since I was in high school with those guys. And then after, I don't even think it wasn't until after the Olympics that it happened. I think it was more so COVID. When COVID happened and nobody was doing anything, um, I felt like we felt like if we were going to make a change, right, to represent the homeland, because like I said, they've been bugging me for years. I mean, obviously, not for nothing, being second or third on the ladder for a couple of years. In this sport, you don't really get to travel as much just because usually just the starter goes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, there's a bug flying around. Just because I mean, you can only send X amount of guys to these competitions. So
Yeah.
it was something that me and Buxton were talking about. We're like, we can't get out to competitions being third on the ladder, this and that, and um, let's go compete more, right? Let's go compete more. And once I talked to my family about it, and especially my grandmother, because I was kind of torn about it, right? And you grow up, especially living here, and I've wrestled for the U.S. a little bit. You have pride, and I still do have pride in representing the United States, right? Or that I have. So I was torn about it. I was 100% torn about it, and but talking to my grandparents and my family, they were like, "That's a no-brainer." Like, Puerto Rico is a country full of pride, right? Full of pride. Like, there's no bigger honor than to represent your country, right? So it's like it was me being me having pride in the country that I had served, right? But when I talked to my family and my heritage, right, and everyone, obviously closely knitted to that, they were like, "Oh my gosh, like you get the chance to represent your country." Like, it had nothing to do with wrestling. They never even mentioned wrestling. It was
Yeah.
just like you have the opportunity to represent like your home country, like Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans are one of the most prideful, countries. Like the island, like it's just everybody from it, cultures. It's built on pride. So, um, and then from there, just kind of having that conversation with the Puerto Rican Federation and what that meant. Because we grew up every summer going to Puerto Rico visiting family, right? So at the same time, not for nothing. And I was talking to RBY about this, and the same thing with Gomez. When they were kind of making that switch, like they're not putting food on. USA Wrestling isn't putting food on your plate. If you're not the number one guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, not to bash them at all. It's they have to pour into their top level guys, right? So if you're not those guys, not saying they mistreat you at all. I don't want any misconception, right? But that's just how a successful business is run, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to push the people that are producing, right? So not that I felt that in any type of way, but it was an easy decision for me just because, I know my culture, I know my heritage, and I was proud to be able to represent that and be something. We talk about being bigger than yourself. I was proud to be do something bigger than myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's kids, especially in Lehigh Valley, majority that have the same, hair, skin color, look like me, right, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was a no-brainer once we got down to the nitty gritty, and yeah, I've been super fortunate to now not just go there for vacation, but just go there to pop out and show face. And I enjoy meeting with the federation. I enjoy meeting with some of the local clubs that are around there. I enjoy having conversation and chopping it up. And they play our matches when we're overseas, like at their local clubs and like local bars and local facilities. And we go there and they know who we are. So it's we're super fortunate to be able to have that support. And like I keep saying, like you know me better than anybody. That's what I thrive on, is that kind of community and energy. So I love that kind of stuff. So it was a no
Yeah.
brainer.
Yeah, this year it's been very different, right? Everything is heightened because there's only 6 weights, there's not 10.
Yeah.
So, with guys like you and RBY and Gomez that have beaten guys that are representing the United States, there was a lot more backlash about it. A lot more people talking about Kerry, talking about you, talking about RBY, Gomez. How did you handle stuff like that when, I mean, did you really ignore the comments? Did you see any of the comments? But how did you handle all of that? Because it wasn't until you guys were beating, you beat Zane Richards to qualify for the Olympics. It wasn't until stuff like that was happening that there's a problem, right? So how did you handle all that?
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there, right? So, not for nothing, Zane beat me 3 times that year, right? This past year, he beat me 3 times, or this past, wrestling cycle, right? Your wrestling season, sorry. And nobody said anything. Nobody batted an eye about any of that kind of stuff, right? And they only started talking when you're in a scenario. And I don't even like to kind of paint that picture, but I was ready for that, right? I was going into that competition, and it didn't matter who was in my way, right? Who I was gonna wrestle. It's not for nothing, not bashing Pan Ams, but there's 3 really good guys in the Pan Ams, right? And they happen to be 3 Americans, right? So any way you paint it, 2 of us were gonna have to scrap out for the spot, right? So I was prepared for any scenario, right? And it just so happens that Zane Richards was on my side, and the American was on my side. So, and I don't take it personally, right? If he would have beat me, it's just how how the cards were dealt. So, it's interesting and kind of funny to see how they try to paint that picture. And I watched a bunch of the interviews for each person. You know what I mean? Myself, OBY, and Austin Gomez, and it's just funny here. And we're all kind of painting the same picture, like. Again, you can't worry about the talk and the banter on what we're doing and how we're doing it, because we have bigger things to focus on. Like, we're getting ready for the Olympic Games, so it's like, you know what I mean. A wolf doesn't lose sleep over the thoughts of a sheep. You know what I'm saying? Like, not in any disrespectful way, but we have things to focus on, and we're not worried about what this other country thinks about how we're trying to put food on our plate and accomplish our dreams. You know what I'm saying? I respectfully, I don't think anybody can bash that, right? If you're chasing your dream, how can you even consider bashing that or throwing shade on that? If you're truly a competitor, a true athlete, any chance someone gets to chase their dreams, like, I'm gonna tell you, like, to jump as high as you can. You know what I'm saying? So no, I mean, I never took it personally, and we knew that kind of stuff was gonna come that way. And like I said, back to the Kerry McCoy thing. Like, I have such a good role model, Kerry, and he's very stoic, and he handled it so well. So and I talked to him about it. I'm like, what's gonna happen? He's like, just say how you feel, and nothing. He's like, never former, always an Olympian, right? He's like, has this little saying. It's like, you're never a former Olympian. You're always an Olympian. So he's like, just keep in mind that no one can take that away from you. So
yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. And that's what was interesting to me. Of no one has said anything until now, right? Until Gomez beats Nick Lee, until you beat Zane Richards. RBY makes it. You and RBY essentially made it to the finals, and you guys were the 2 that ended up getting the qualification spot. So ultimately, all is right in the world for everyone, because U.S. qualifies all the weights and everything else. He had to do it the hard way, but everyone is qualified that everyone in the United States wants to be qualified. But it was just a very interesting conversation for a lot of people that were, they were pissed off. Like, well, he lost a match to a guy that he's beaten before. Maybe we should look towards that instead of who he beat, right? Because if it was the Russian who he had beaten 3 times before, and then he ends up losing to him at that stage. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of is what it is. But
like, that stuff could happen, like you were saying. Like, if it was a different country, like, that could happen to World Championships, Olympic Games. Like, that's just crazy about the sport of wrestling, right? And I saw a couple comments as well where I can't put point and blame, but at the same time, they had opportunities. They had opportunities to have a different athlete wrestle. Not saying Zane wasn't the guy qualified, but I saw people talking trash, like, we should have had this guy. They had the opportunity to do that. They had the opportunity to put any guy they wanted, right? Unfortunately, I feel like that's how USA does they do their trials after that type of situation, right? So it's like, is their best guy out? for the time being, yeah, right. But at the same time, like you know how biased people can be, and you know what I mean. Like you know who some people are kind of holding off for the Olympic trials, and you know I don't blame them, right. But at the same time, how could you talk trash about the caliber of guy you put out when you guys had the opportunity to send your best guy, right? It's just people are just uninformed in that manner, and that's just how it goes. That's just I think one of the you know stipulations that USA Wrestling goes by is the guy who's the starter for the World Championships prior has first bid, but other guys can wrestle him off. And if they opt out, like they don't want to wrestle him off, then they send that guy who's he's still a hammer, right? Because at the same time, you have your biggest trials, a month or so afterwards. So I don't blame, any of those guys not wanting to jump in, make weight, and scrap for an Olympic spot at the Pan Ams when they know they have to try out for the actual team, a month or two later. So I feel like that system is flawed in that manner, right? But at the same time, you can't be knocking anybody for, getting it done, right? So that's what the interesting thing about that is like I saw a bunch of people on Twitter like, they should have sent this person or this person. I'm like, well, they could have when they decided not to, and now it's a big deal. Like, oops, we didn't qualify. Send in who we sent. Maybe we should put more thought or effort into who we send, so this stuff kind of doesn't happen, right? I guarantee if Lee doesn't qualify for the Olympics, they're gonna make sure that never happens again by sending their most qualified guy to qualify the weight. Not taking anything away from Zayn, but it could have been way worse, right? They could have really got nipped in the butt. But that's not on anything on the athletes. I feel like that's just something that USA Wrestling. But they didn't have to worry about that. They always have a guy qualified at the World Championships, right? Just USA is so deep. Or they have a guy just straight up, do the thing. But now that, like I said, some Americans are spreading out, it makes that tournament that much deeper, right? And it's crazy. It's really, really crazy.
Yeah, things are certainly getting tougher. But you talked about, Kerry being a role model for you. You are now in that position to be a role model. And, you talked about Crookham being in the room and some of the other guys. Crookham is kind of that next guy, right? Like you were the guy that was in the lineup, got an NCAA title. Crookham is that next guy that everybody is pointing at. And when you won an NCAA title, the odds were stacked against you. People didn't expect you to win an NCAA title. He comes in with a lot of expectation because he was, ranked number 1, beaten Vito, everything over the last year. But, you talk about training right alongside Crookham. How many conversations with him have you had about being the top guy, about being a guy that has a lot of expectation? Because then after you won that NCAA title, the expectation came in. And, then that's when people were really, truly expecting for you to come out on top. How many conversations have you had with Crookham about just dealing with that type of pressure and dealing with the expectation of, everyone else around you?
Yeah. I mean, man, this story, these conversations go way back, right? This is not a surprise for me. This experience that Ryan's going through, right? These expectations that Ryan's, but I had these conversations with him when they were happening to me, when he was a young kid, right? Because Ryan's been my guy since we were little. Like he's always been that little kid running around the wrestling room, right? X amount of years younger than me. When he was at Weaver, and right when I was in college, right? This is what I mean having those conversations years in advance. I was mature enough to be able to pour into an athlete like Ryan, where I'd do privates with him, right? Because he was a local kid, and to be able to do privates with your local hero, I was always willing to give back, right? And Ryan was one of my guys where it'd be late night and we'd be scrapping, or he'd be like, "Hey, can you get a workout in?" I'm like, "I'm there," right? And I think I take a lot of pride in this too. Not only did I teach him wrestling, right, but I would spend like the first 20, 30 minutes of the workout chopping it up. Hey, how you doing? How's your family? How you feeling? Right, you're going through this. You're transferring schools. You're doing it, right? Like I got to know him more as a person, as an athlete, and then we trained. We started training, not just the physical, but the mental. And I would tell him about my experiences, right? He came and watched me win a national title. He came and watched me not be on the top of the podium, but come back and get fifth, right? So and have those expectations. I would give it to him raw every time, right? I'm like, man, like that feeling was unbelievable. And we had those conversations. about me being a national champ before I was a national champ, right? He saw the whole process. He saw somebody train, build, go through it, have an up and down season, have losses, build belief in themselves, right? Because I was very transparent with Ryan because I was trying to be that role model, right? At the same time, you're trying to convince yourself you're about to be the best in the country, right? You're about to be a national champion. And it seems like the more I talked about it, the more I believed it, the more I could show him, hey, this is what it's like to believe in yourself. And then the more he fed off of it, right, as a young kid, and he accomplished so much as a young kid, but we've had these conversations you're mentioning since those times. Like, I told him, like, coming off the podium my senior year, I'm like, hey, one of the biggest regrets I have is feeling that anxiety of expectation, even though there really shouldn't be, right? So he knew what it meant and knew what it felt like just through conversation, right? I mean, you won't unfortunately you won't actually know until you do it, but I gave it to him as vivid as I could to feel that, like, passionately feel the ups, the downs, right, of everything and the emotions of it also. We've had those conversations since he was coming up and coming through it, so I think he's ready for that next step. And, one thing I always tell him is, like, I'm not training you and teaching you and working out with you for you to do as good as me, right? That's like that. I feel let down as a teacher, as a mentor, to be doing that. I want you to, like, maybe people forget who I am. Like, that's how high I want you shooting, is people are going to forget who I am because you're accomplishing so much, and not only on the map, but in your community and, your influence around the country and around the world. It's like, that's my goal as a coach and a mentor and as an athlete, is to make sure that I'm giving back in a way where people, Darian who, right? Like, I'm, not in a disrespectful way, but I want you to blow up that big where you're doing all these incredible things. So, like I said, talking about Ryan, is we've had those conversations since he was in high school. So it's kind of funny, kind of touching back on those conversations. And he, in training, he's like, hey, I remember you talking to me about this, when we were training back when I was in high school and this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're experiencing it now, right? Like, you feel what I'm talking about. He's like, yeah, it's crazy. And it's funny seeing it click for him a little bit more and get a little bit personal for him. And he's such an incredible guy, incredible young man that I'm excited. He deserves everything that he gets, right? And, taking this loss at NCAA's, and it just keeps him hungry. And I'm not saying that he needed it, right? Because I'm sure he's hungry without it. But, something like this, he won't let it happen again. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, he's just going to be ready to rock and roll. And not to put any expectations on him, because at this point I feel like nobody really can, because that's how sharp and mentally focused he is he's such a fun kid in that manner that there's no expectations, because he's just looking to get better every time. He's trying to give his best performance every time and just be as sharp as he can. So that's just a really good space to be in. And as I continue to grow, I continue to share that. Right, as I get a little bit older, and I'm like, man, I used to be worried about this and worried about that, and I'm like, don't let that hold you back, man. So yeah, we've been having the conversation since we were a little kid, so it's funny to see it come to fruition more and more as he gets older.
Yeah. And one of the things that you and Ryan have in common, outside of just being Lehigh Valley guys going on to Lehigh, was you were both part of high school teams that were hated. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, like I was part of it where I didn't realize, and I didn't, for me, I didn't care what color the singlet was, and I always bought, and I still try to bring like an athlete mentality to the things that I'm doing, where I'm like, I don't care what color the singlet is. The singlet doesn't give you extra points. You still have to beat the guy that's out there. And in the Lehigh Valley, it was like Bethlehem Catholic is the mean machine. And then, once Ryan got into high school, Notre Dame was like super mean. And, they went through the same thing that you guys went through with reclassifying to big school. And, Notre Dame just reclassified to big school. He's obviously not there anymore, but it's the same things. What was that like, where you guys went from the villain of a high school wrestler to being the most celebrated in the same town by the same people at Lehigh?
Yeah, it's funny because as a young kid, I'm going to just give my experience through Ryan. He got to see the whole thing as a fan, right? As a young kid, seeing one of your favorite athletes go through that stuff. So he got to get the inside scoop on a lot of things, like, hey, like, you guys get booed all the time, like blah, blah, blah. And I got to give him the non-fan perspective, right? And I'm like, now this is the reality of it, and you know what I mean, and we don't really look into it, and then it's funny because it just so happens he was put in that same situation. So he, like I said, it's so funny how everything worked out because he was asking questions for a situation that he would be in eventually, not
Hmm.
knowing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very interesting dynamic because and again, same thing kind of with the U.S. thing as well. It's like we don't really take it personally, right? Because we're committing to chasing our dreams and accomplishing our goals. Not for nothing, me and my brothers grew up wrestling on the same team. And when you're a little kid, you're in elementary and middle school, and it kind of really doesn't matter where you live. And me and my brothers have same dad, different mom, so um, the basic idea was where can the boys wrestle together because we've been wrestling together our whole lives.
Hmm.
Oh, we got to go to this Catholic school. Okay, we'll send them. We'll send the Cruz boys to this Catholic school. Everything else that happened was what it was. Like we had no influence, no conversation with anybody. Um, we just had that presence in Lehigh Valley, I guess. That when we went there, and we, what I mean, like we were naive to all this kind of stuff because we were like, yeah, I want to wrestle with my brother and my cousin. Like I want to, like Cruz boys want to wrestle together. Oh, we get to go to Becca together. It's gonna be sick. It had nothing to do with wrestling, just being on the same team as your brothers. So, but it just snowballed into this bigger thing, and history has a tendency to repeat itself, and the same thing happened with Notre Dame. So for us to be involved in very similar manners was very interesting, to say the least. But it's interesting because, like you said, that villain dynamic, and the good thing is that usually majority they could see good people, right? Like not for nothing, we had like not bashing anybody either. Zeke was just a menace. Zeke
Yeah.
was a menace to have on your team because he gave the crowd, he fed into the crowd, right? Like a Elliot Riddick and a Zeke Moisey, where they were out there beefing with everybody, right? So
Hmm.
we never got any shade, me and my brothers, because we were just taught, be humble and have humility both on and off the mat, and if anything comes your way, just have the grace to continue to move forward and promote yourself above all, right? You represent your last name, so it's like don't do anything to kind of embarrass yourself, and we stuck true to that. And people try to get under our skin, and at the end of the day, I feel like one thing is for certain that you can't knock the Cruz boys because they were very classy and win, loss, defeat. If you were booing in our face, we kind of we kept the main thing, and just kind of ate it, and we didn't really pay mind to it. And I think that was one thing that kind of instilled on Ryan as well. It's just don't mind, and you can see Ryan never really showboated in that manner, had any problem with those type of atmosphere.
Yeah. So we started off, talking about being a Lehigh Valley guy and growing up and being, successful without leaving. But I want to take it back a little bit further because I started that conversation in your sophomore year. I want to go back to your freshman year. This is the last question I have for you. Your freshman
Yeah.
year, you broke your ankle and you weren't able to compete at the state tournament, and everyone, couldn't wait to see you on that platform. You
Mm-hmm.
were, lighting things up, and then you end up getting hurt and not able to compete in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're an Olympian. When you look back at that time where you broke your ankle, what's something you would tell that young wrestler about the life and career that you've had
Wow.
when he's super devastated that he's not going to be able to wrestle in his first state tournament?
Wow, that's a great question. That's a great question, man. I am so fortunate. I would tell my younger self is you are so blessed to go through something like this. And my younger self would hate it. You know what I mean? My younger self would hate it and be like, "Why me?" and this and that. And because not only did I go through that my freshman year, but I went through something like that heartbreak my sophomore year as well. Losing to Milhoff in the blood round, some kid I majored in the season, um, and not becoming an All American. And then look what happened. You know what I mean? Like just the trajectory that kind of stuff like that propels you to. Um, it's hard to express. So it would be hard to express to the younger me. But I would just tell my younger me, like, man, you are so blessed to be able to go through this stuff, and you're gonna be so proud of where you get to be. You know what I mean? And I don't know what it was, and I want to say I give it to the community I was around, but I was just constantly surrounded by good people, and my family never let me down, right? They never let me get down and stay down, and without moments like that, right? Watching Zane Rutherford win a state title, um, I used to, like, not for nothing, I used to beat up Zane when we were little kids, and we would go back and forth as we got older, and I was his training partner for 2017, and I remember he told me, he's like, dude, I used to do 500 push-ups a night because you used to beat the crap out of me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just so funny. We've been childhood friends for so long, and seeing how we both kind of excel. So watching him win that state title, um, just ate at me, right? Watching Milhoff get his hand raised and getting on that podium just ate at me. So, not qualifying for the Olympics or even the Olympic trials um, back in 2020 just ate at me, right? So it's like if I could tell my younger me, I would say, if I could tell my younger me something, I would just say, you're blessed to have an opportunity to feel this pain, right? Because not a lot of people get to feel that. Your passion is what's producing this much pain, right? You care so deeply, and this hurts you so bad, and like you're gonna cry about it, you're gonna lose sleep about it. But you are blessed to have that type of passion towards something and have that type of competitive fire towards something that it's going to set you up to grow as a person, right? You're gonna grow not only in this sport, but you're not gonna let opportunities go by. You're gonna take advantage and and do everything in your power to get the best out of every situation, right? You're not going to overlook any opportunities that are handed to you. Um, and when you do, you're gonna get humbled again, right? So it's like it's just how it goes. And I would tell, especially my freshman year self, that kind of situation. That I paint that picture of, you're blessed for this because of that of having that struggle and pain. You're gonna overcome it, but God's really good at humbling you. So you're gonna get humbled, and you're gonna have to grow again, and that's what's so interesting about the sport of wrestling in general. Being such a good life teacher is, you know, we practice falling down every day for 2 hours, right? It's literally fall down practice. You fall down, get up, right? When you're drilling, you're falling down, getting back up. So it's like we literally spend multiple hours a day falling down and getting up over and over and over and over again. Like when you're drilling, you're not thinking about getting up. You just when you get up the takedown, you get up and you get back in the guy's face. So it's like, man, that has been such a big tool that I'm now realizing more as an adult. That is big. That I'm now want to teach my kids, right, to have and harness is just the idea of getting back up, right, and the sun's coming up the next day, no matter how high you are or how low you are. Like, you gotta pick yourself up and keep it moving. So, yeah, that's the story I would tell my younger self is like, man, you're lucky because not a lot of people get to feel that type of passion, and not a lot of people are going to be able to feel the passion that you feel, from being this low to getting back to the top over and over and over again. And I feel like that's just a tribute to the man I've become, the man I will continue to be and grow into, and then the men that and women that have raised me to be that. So it's like it gets me excited just talking about it because it's like it paints the whole picture of why I do what I do.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been great. This is awesome conversation. I always love any chance we get a chance to talk and kind of chop it up. And we've had so many interviews, but even more conversations that are not even on the record that people don't even know about. And
Oh yeah,
but like I said, like I started out, it's special for me to be able to watch you grow in the sport because I started my career literally on the back of your guys' success and watching everything that you guys did. So awesome to sit here and talk and super proud of you, and I know you got a plane to catch, so I'm gonna let you go. But Darian, it's always awesome, man, and good luck at your tournament coming up, and then good luck in Paris.
of course, Ryan. It's always a pleasure connecting with the Valley Boy, and we're in this together. We're continuing to grow and continue to accomplish big things.